Welcome everyone to another episode of Eat, Sleep, Drive, and we're in beautiful Arizona, as you can see in the background here, checking out this 2020 Honda CRV Hybrid. Hybrid being the key word there because this is Honda's first attempt at making a hybrid vehicle of their most successful car in their lineup, of course, the CRV. Now, this car is very important to them because they sold roughly 400,000 units of the CRV last year. So suffice to say, this hybrid model is very important to their lineup. Now, Honda has a goal that in 2030, 2/3 of their vehicles that will be sold will be electrified in some way. Electrification could mean anything from hybrid like this or a full electric vehicle. It's a lofty goal, but pretty aspirational given they want to reduce carbon emissions and do their part. Now, there are a bunch of advantages to hybridization outside of just fuel economy. You know, that's of course the big selling point. You get significantly better fuel economy with a hybrid, especially in the city. But there are other advantages like the power output. This is their most powerful model. It puts out more than 200 horsepower and torque. So you get that advantage, but also there is a level of refinement in electric vehicles, even hybrids like this one, that you're just not gonna find in a gasoline engine car. Let's take this thing for a drive. First thing you'll notice is that the center console has a push buttons instead of the traditional like little gear lever. So that's a little bit different. And we're going to silently, ever so silently, take off. And as you can probably tell by the lack of sound hopefully coming through in the video, this thing is super quiet, being that it's predominantly an electric vehicle. Now, the engine itself is a gasoline engine and it can sometimes power the wheels, but this is very different than a lot of competitors' vehicles in that it has an engine, but it doesn't have a traditional transmission like most cars have. See, the engine itself, most of the time, runs and generates electricity for the electric motors to propel the vehicle. But sometimes that's not very efficient. It's not very efficient to motor your vehicle down the road at steady state, especially at higher speeds, just converting your gas generation into electricity and then driving the wheels. Sometimes it's more efficient to just have that engine driving the wheels. And that's what they've essentially done here. So I know that's like a lot of technical things that I was talking about there, so forgive me, but keep in mind that what it means ultimately when you go to drive it is that it's completely seamless. Sometimes, very occasionally, you'll hear the gas engine and it's really only when you like super put your foot to the floor and you're really asking a lot from the car. Listen to this thing. It sounds kind of like a weed eater, but most of the time you're just kind of like humming along in what seems like a fully electric vehicle. So from a comfort standpoint, that's just wonderful. And that's one of the huge benefits of hybridization and electrifying vehicles. It's just a more refined experience overall. Now, of course, the big thing is that you get better fuel economy, and that's the main selling point, right? 38 miles to a gallon combined. It's about 35 in the highway and 40 in the city. And that's just kind of how hybrids work. Typically, you know, it's the city number is lower, right? With most internal combustion engine cars. But hybrids recoup energy in the city and stuff, so they actually get better fuel economy in the city. So something to keep in mind if you predominantly do city driving, you're gonna get even better fuel economy observed than just the regular base engine. So when it comes to this versus its competitors and stuff like that, I was very fortunate today because I got to drive back-to-back the RAV4 hybrid and the CRV hybrid. The RAV4 is basically the #1 competitor for the CRV. They sell, you know, they kind of swap places as far as how many are sold in the US. So very important competition for Honda. That's why they had it here. And we got to drive both back to back on this little MPG loop to see what we got practically MPG wise. Now keep in mind, the EPA rates the RAV4 as having a better miles per gallon rating, slightly better, like ever so slightly. What was interesting was on the MPG loop, I drove the exact same distance, I covered the exact same route, and I tried to go roughly the same speed. Obviously, I was doing it at 2 different times, but I actually got better fuel economy in the Honda. 11 miles, 41.5 mpg. 11 miles, 46.1 mpg. So the car that's supposed to get more fuel economy did not. So I don't know if Honda is, worried about overestimating EPA things because of obviously like some companies getting in trouble with that, or maybe Toyota is overestimating. I don't know, and I'm not going to claim one way or another, but what I'm here to say is that they're both very similar. They're basically a wash, and honestly both cars are very similar. There's just a few nuance to each, which is ultimately probably what's going to come down to which one you choose, right? One thing I will say, driving both back to back, the Honda is more comfortable. The seats are more comfortable. The ride is more comfortable. I think it's slightly more quiet. So from a comfort and luxury standpoint, the Honda seems superior to me. Now, subjectively, if you want to talk about looks and stuff like that, that's on you guys. For me, I think the RAV4 looks a little bit slightly edgier, maybe a little bit more masculine. The Honda looks very classical. It's very conservative styling. It's everything you would expect from Honda. So, you can be the judge of that one, which one you like the looks of better and stuff like that. But when it comes to comfort and when it comes to like a refined ride quality, I really think that it's really hard to beat Honda in this segment. So we're going along here. I can talk about the interior a little bit. The infotainment system in this vehicle is feeling a bit dated, and that is kind of common knowledge for this thing. So I'm not really saying anything that people don't know. What I will say though is that while it's a little bit slow to respond and stuff like that, it is very basic and easy to use, which I really appreciate. And I think, that's considering who this car sells for, I think that's a really good idea. Keep it basic. It has Android Auto. It has Apple CarPlay. So you can honestly bypass all that stuff, and just use the benefit of really good, software like Android Auto and stuff like that. So while it's not the best, once again, it is basic, and that really continues to all the other buttons and stuff like that as far as climate control. Super easy to use, little knobs. I have a knob for volume, which is really nice. I don't have to hit the screen. So it's very, very simple. The hybrid version gets this button pushing for selecting your gear. So traditionally in a regular car, or at least the regular CRV, there's a little, lever here that you would pull down to go from park to drive or whatever. Not so in the hybrid. That is one of two big differences between the hybrid and the regular model. So you just press the button, press the drive button, and you whiz away. The other big difference, and there's a couple other minor things, but the other big difference is the LCD for the hybrid is slightly different. You're getting more. It seems like it's trying to score me on my driving style, and it wants me to be quite efficient. While we're talking about that though, there are these buttons over here for sport, economy, and EV mode, which I will press the sport button right now. And I believe the gas engine stays on in sport mode, and it sharpens the throttle. So I have a little bit quicker throttle response. It makes the car feel quicker. It's really not when you put your foot down in either mode, but it does make the car feel a little bit quicker. There's also the economy mode button, which tends to be like the default, and then the EV button. And honestly, like half the time I've tried to use the EV button, it doesn't even work because it says the battery is too low. Now, what is the point of having an EV button if I press it and the battery is depleted? Like, I understand, why that is, but at the same time, like, the reason that is it's always in EV mode whenever it can be, because that's the most efficient way for you to get the best fuel economy, right? So this is a whole long roundabout way of saying I don't understand why they even have these sport, economy, and EV mode buttons. Like, no one's gonna get in here and hit the sport button. It's not a particularly sporty, inspiring vehicle. And I don't mean that in a bad way, it's just like that's what it is. This is more of a comfort-oriented vehicle. As I come to a stop here, I can press the left paddle button and I can engage the regenerative braking, the manual regenerative braking. Regenerative braking basically means that you're using the momentum of the car and you're coupling it with a motor and trying to recuperate some energy when you come to a stop. So instead of using the brakes, you're using the electric motor to harness some energy, and that is efficient. Now, it does that automatically basically when you hit the brakes, but having this little button here to do it manually can be handy when you're doing things like in the mountains, which are straight ahead of me, huge mountains. If you're coming down a mountain road and you want to control your speed with the regenerative braking, you can basically be charging the battery at the same time. So that's a pretty cool like little feature that they've added here. Traditionally, the paddles are for shifting multiple gears, but since the CRV doesn't have a regular transmission, there's no point in having that. So that's quite interesting. What else can we talk about? I've already mentioned that the ride is wonderful. There's ample storage in this car. There's a huge, very modular glove box that kind of does this thing where you can fold it up and do all kinds of things. I'll show you guys a video of that now. They were keen to mention that you could fit your whole person here. And the other big thing with the CRV to keep in mind is that this has class-leading passenger volume. And, you know, that's a fancy way of saying the rear seats have 3 inches more legroom than the RAV4. So, you know, if you're constantly driving people around and you're worried about them and their comfort and stuff like that, this is the vehicle to get, honestly. It has the most space back there, and it is definitely very comfortable and roomy, plenty of headroom. I'm 6'1", and there's, in the driver's seat, there's loads and loads of headroom, which sort of speaks to the whole airiness of the cabin, to be honest. The visibility in this car is fantastic. You don't get that hunkered down feeling that you get in a lot of cars these days that kind of make them look more aggressive because they have a higher belt line. This has fantastic visibility, and once again, as we go through over this less than perfect road, is just like, it's very nice. It's very supple. The ride is, once again, more comfort-oriented than sporting, as is the steering and things like that. But that's the car, you know what I mean? It's time for us to sum up the Honda CR-V Hybrid. And honestly, it's a pretty compelling argument when you start to look at the pricing structure. A base model CR-V is $25,000. That's gas engine and front-wheel drive. A base model hybrid is $27,700. So about a $2,700 difference. But keep in mind, the hybrid comes standard with all-wheel drive, which is traditionally a $1,500 option. So you're effectively paying right around $1,200 for the upgraded hybrid powertrain. You can pay off that $1,200 within 4 years of just fuel economy savings with the hybrid. So if you're going to keep the car for 4 years, it's really a no-brainer to just get the hybrid. And that's not even taking into consideration that the hybrid has a superior driving experience because it's quieter, and it's also even quicker because it has more horsepower and torque. So why wouldn't you get the hybrid? I'm very curious to see what the take rate is going to be on these vehicles and who opts for the hybrid and who opts for the gas. My feeling is that Honda is going to have to really ramp up production of these cars because they're going to be quite desirable. There's not too much I can complain about with this car, to be honest. It's not super inspiring or sporty, and I don't love the infotainment system and stuff like that, but the comfort and the build quality is very, very nice. The leather is wonderful. It is a fantastic driving experience, especially with the hybrid powertrain. So if you're looking in this segment, you should definitely take a look at the CR-V Hybrid. It's a fantastic package. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys want to follow me in between episodes, check me out on Instagram at Eat Sleep Drive TV. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you guys on the next one.